So anyway, I just thought I'd show you how I'm handling painting the mirrors. Usually I hang small parts from a wire, but you know, sometimes it's difficult depending on which way the light is cast to see all angles, even if you've got something hanging out in midair like that. So the other thing that's a hazard is I get to moving around in the spray room, and then I usually knock my head into one of those things that's hanging, so not a fun time. So what I've done here is with the mirrors, they've got a couple of studs sticking through the bottom and some nuts to mount them to the car. I've used those mounting studs to mount it just to a piece of 1/2-inch plywood. And then, of course, the wiring harness on these is meant not to come apart, so you can't take the wires out in order to spray this thing. So you have to protect that and the mirror from getting painted. So I've got the paper taped over top of the wire, which is fed through the board. This allows me to take the piece while I'm spraying it and rotate it into the light and see if I've got good coverage. Anyway, I just thought I'd show you that little tip. Okay, so it's the last of the parts to be painted. Repaint on the bumper, repaint on the wing, painted door handles. Those are the covers for the road lights, and the rear view mirrors are done now. So that's not the last of it, actually. I still have to do the front air dam, but I wanted to get all this orange painted stuff out of here before I go painting that, because that's going to be matte black, and there's a little bit of body work that has to be done to it also. So hopefully beginning of next week I'll get this stuff bolted back up to the car, get it out of harm's way. Right now I'll just leave it here where I won't be knocking into it, hopefully. Alright, so this is something that's been bugging me since I started the project, how I was going to handle this. But these windows are held in. There's a rubber bead that's actually like a U-channel. It wraps around the edge of the glass. Now, since I buried this glass, knew I was going to bury some of this glass back in the hole here and change this profile, I initially went ahead and took a flat blade and I sliced this front portion of the profile off the glass. So I separated it from the rest of the bedding, which this glass is still bedded with that rubber molding. At any rate, so I had to figure out what I was going to do as far as replicating this around here. And what I simply did was I saved the outer portion and I just cut it to length. And it makes an abrupt change right here, which I'm going to fill this in with a little bit of silicone in this little pocket here. But this is glued down to the glass now with this glue that Dow makes for setting windshields. This stuff here. Now, when I was deciding whether or not I was going to use this to stick that rubber down, I took a little sample of it and I glued it to a piece of glass. And by the next day you couldn't pull the rubber off the glass. So this is some pretty good stuff. It's what they set windshields with nowadays. It's a urethane. But the problem with this is when you open up a tube, which was the size of a caulking tube, you better use up what you're going to use and then toss the rest, because it gets very hard very quick. So what I had done when I did the sample was I opened the tube from the end and put the caulking tube screws onto the end of the tube. And of course you can't really use a hand caulking gun. I made the mistake of using that on the Daytona to set the windshield, and my hand about fell off trying to push that stuff out of the tube. It's very thick. So I went ahead and I got a pneumatic caulking gun, and it worked really good when I opened the tube at first, but of course a couple months went by. Even though the tube was sealed up as best as I could seal it up, probably the top 1 inch of the tube was hardened up. So what I ended up doing was taking a Sawzall and cutting away the top of the tube and just scooping it out with a stick. And I applied it right to the glass, masked the glass off where I wanted the glue to stay, and then tore the tape off and stuck the rubber and taped the rubber to the car so that it would hold overnight. And I had to do it in 4 successive days. First this piece, done this piece the second day, and then repeated the process on the other side of the car. What I'm getting ready to do right now is there's a black painted perimeter around the glass, and of course the one that's there fades off and follows the window back into the hole. So what I've done is I've masked this off here. You can see through the glass right there. I've masked this off here to follow the profile of this rubber molding. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to back spray this black, and hopefully it'll be looking like it belonged there in the first place. Anyway, got that going on. We've got the rubber moldings cleaned up and back on the car. The perimeter of the door has its molding. The outside also has the top molding, which I had to establish the top molding first before I could get this to continue on. So this had to happen. The mirrors are on the car. Door handles are now on the car with the key. Inside the car, I've been starting to reassemble the dashboard. Got the dash pod cover on there. There's another big plastic piece that went across the front that had to go in, and starting to put the air conditioning ducts back in. Over here on the hood, I finally got the graphics and the hood grills on the car. So let me just shut it and show you how that looks. I haven't got anything here in the way, but anyway, this is what that's looking like right now. What I ended up doing is I had got some 3M car vinyl wrap for cars, automotive stuff, and cut it into 1/2-inch strips for the hood, and painted it out with the base coat, the orange, and then there's a SEM vinyl clear that you could spray over it, kind of lock it down, and then I put those strips on in that pattern. Also have the little windshield little sprayers there stuck into the hood. They're in there to stay now. But just going around and doing a lot of the little knickknacks that take a lot of time, but they've got to be done. Anyway, I'll be going onto this side next to paint this side out when I'm done. I also stripped off some very bad tinting job that they had on this car, and of course it leaves the glue behind. It probably took me about 4 days to get the glue off the rear window on the inside, but I got that all cleaned off finally, a little bit at a time with some lacquer thinner, because they sell stuff that's supposed to be a glue release, a water-based stuff, but it doesn't work very well. So anyway, like I said, I'm pretty happy with the graphics. They worked out pretty nice. Anyway, that's where we're at right now. Still got the radial wheels on it, although I do like the blackout look. Let's see what else I got going over here. I redid the clear on the bumper, and I'm starting to put the rear tail lights housings together and in. And thing about these housings is I had to find some stainless steel screws, because I obviously don't want to put screws in that are going to rust. Unfortunately, the way they cast these, some of them, the heads just drop right in, no problem. This one, this one, this one, and this one. But like this one here and the two on the end, I'd actually have to grind the heads down to fit so that they would drop into the little recess there. So anybody takes this apart in the future, you're going to have to remember these are different size heads than these four over here for some reason or other. That's the way it ends up. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. It's a little bit better than what I had going on here. So anyway, just picking at it a little at a time. Incidentally, this is the stuff that I'm going to use on the glass before I spray the black. It's an adhesion promoter. I got this when I did my Daytona because I wanted to put a black perimeter around the windshield and the rear glass to look more like a modern car. Seemed to work pretty good. I mean, it's not as good as the process that they use when they actually do it for a car in the factory, which is actually they put the paint on and then they bake it in an oven, and it really etches its way into the glass. Something that I used a long time ago when I was a silkscreen printer, we had an epoxy glass ink that we used to use when we wanted to print on glass, and you could not, it would etch its way into the glass, and you could not scratch that off at all. And I, for the life of me, haven't been able to find it. It must have been a really toxic product of some sort, because that's back in the 70s, and I mean that stuff where it was like iron. It just would not come off. But for the life of me, I've searched every way I can on the internet, haven't been able to find it. So any silkscreen printers out there that have, to deal with screen printing on glass, maybe you can tell me what's going on. If there's a better product to, paint out the black on the back side of the glass that would last longer than just, regular spray cans of paint over a adhesion promoter. Anyway, luckily for me, this is not an area where it's going to get a lot of traffic. This rear quarter window is really going to be an area where it's not going to be affected by hands or anything like that. These are the side marker lights out of the Dodge Challenger, and they fit the styling of that car. The angles on both ends reflect the bumper angle and also the wheel openings. But they don't match what I've got now. So what I've opted to do is I've decided to create, this is just a paper sample of a grill that goes over, and it will cover the ends. Now this one's a little bit longer. This is designed for the front marker light. But this is the idea. This will cover that, and it'll square it up, and in that way it'll reconcile it with the wheel openings and the bumper lines of this car. The way I'm going about it is I got a piece of 050 aluminum, and I've created this router jig based on, I have a straight fluted bit and a laminate trimmer, and based on the blade plus the width of the base of this unit, created this opening and screwed down these stops so that it'll ride along the inside and create this hole here. Now this is a straight edge that I'm using to butt up against the edge of the material, and that keeps these holes parallel. Now you can see I've just put this layout on here, and that's what I'll do is I'll go along and I'll clamp it in place, cut a hole, move it down the line, cut another hole, and so forth. Anyway, this is the result, and then I always try to give myself a lot of beef around the edges because these are small profiles, so keep it from tearing out, and then I'll go back and I'll cut this out on a shear to the finished size to reflect what I have here. So just thought I'd show you that while I'm developing these out. This is a little bit longer, and this, like I said, is for this lens here will fit up underneath here like that. Of course, I'll have to paint these because you see the aluminum edges. Anyway, just another detail. Just thought I'd show you how this ended up looking. This is the side marker light with the aluminum surround put on there to reconcile the different angles of the lens itself, and that's stuck down to the lens itself with a 3M tape that's used for attaching trim to modern cars. It's got a red backer. You've probably seen it in auto parts stores, but the stuff is, you better be pretty happy where you stick it because it's going to stay. Anyway, I've used that a number of times for different things, but the rear bumper's on now. The lenses are in, bulbs are in, rear license plate holders in. I completed the harnesses for the tail lights and the light over the license plate, the backup lights. They're all plugged in and secured inside the car over here. So just moving along with this stuff here. I'm still inching my way around, working on this side window now, finishing this up, finishing the paint out on the inside, and that's where we're at right now. Okay, so I've got the little closure that goes on, that closes up the top between the original car and the new bumper. That's in. Also have the liner in and around the trunk area, and the floor is in also. I finally got the seats mounted in. They look pretty good. Partially in the back seats, I still have to climb around in there. I don't have the bottom part of the back seat in there, so I'm going to goof that up. But I still have tons and tons of knickknacks left to do on this, and I'm going away for the holiday for 4 days, so I'm just going to end this right about here, and we'll move on from here with the next video.